development and all other aspects of life, how would you characterize the story of Rwanda? And what lessons can South Africans learn out of the story of Rwanda of the last 8 years in terms of what they've achieved, and juxtaposing that with the challenges we have back home?
Yes, I think the government and the people of Rwanda have done very, very well in terms of the recovery from the genocide, development of Rwanda, and I'm very glad that South Africa made its own contribution, as President Kagame was saying yesterday, to all of this. But it's very, very good progress and has to be sustained. I think they demonstrate. I mean, if Rwanda can come out of a genocide like that and achieve the kind of progress with regard to development that it has achieved, I think it says to all of us on the continent that whatever our own problems nationally, if we do the right things, we can also recover. I'm thinking, this is April 2024. So it's a month, I think, when all of us as South Africans will be celebrating or marking the 30 years of democracy. I'm mentioning that because I'm thinking of saying something to answer your question. It must include why this negative regression during a certain period in our history after '94. It's not always been like this. There was a period at home that everything was moving very positively, and then things changed and went the opposite direction. I think it's very important to understand that. It'll answer the question, therefore, why are you not following in these footsteps of Rwanda in terms of development and so on? We must answer that question to ourselves as South Africans, and to say, therefore, what we were doing very, very well in all respects. There's new constitutions, the constitutional court, and the public protector. All of these things come from the things that were done since 1994. We create all of these institutions for the democratic state. The economy was doing very well. We reached 5% rates of growth, and all of this. Unemployment increasing, decreasing, and then things changed and went the opposite direction. We must understand that in order to answer your question. Why are we not following the example of Rwanda, which is progressing very well? Why is South Africa going in the opposite direction, whereas it had demonstrated exactly its capacity to go in the same direction? I'm just saying that I am thinking of really talking to our people, South Africans, on this matter, because it's important to understand it in order to then take a decision, is to say, therefore, what is to be done to correct what needs to be corrected. You need to understand what the problem is. Honest to understand it honestly, truthfully, without telling untruths, without trying to paint a big picture which doesn't exist. This is the reality. And therefore, what is the solution? So I'm just saying that I'll see you later this month and answer your question.
I'd love that.
Because we led Rwanda in terms of what to do after the disaster of apartheid. They followed in those footsteps, but at some point we changed. We must answer the question why that change, and what must be done in response to that negative change. Well, I hope to be able to answer that question sometime later this month. So there was a negotiation as to how these two countries should work together to deal with the matter in the Eastern Congo. And they signed an agreement. So there is an existing agreement between President Kabila, Joseph, and President Kagame, which committed them that the Congolese government would make sure that it disarms and deals with all of the people who committed genocide in Rwanda and then left for Eastern Congo. They would disarm them and everything. As a consequence of which Rwanda would then withdraw its troops from the Eastern Congo. A signed agreement. Problem is that it was never implemented, but it was never repudiated. That's exactly the basis for a political solution. It's already agreed between the two countries, signed by the presidents of the two countries, witnessed by President, as I was saying, by Kofi Annan, the late Kofi Annan when he was Secretary General of the UN. And we signed as not just as both as South Africa, and at the time I was also chairperson of the African Union. So there is an existing agreement, and all it needs is its implementation. That's a political solution. And that's the only way to solve the problem. There's no other way. And that is why the presidents then were quite willing to come and sit down and then sign an agreement to find a political resolution to the problem. So with only that, my argument would be, let's go back to that existing agreement and say the presidents of Rwanda and Congo must implement this thing which was signed. And they did that, I'm saying, because they both of them understood that this matter could never be solved by military means. It can't be. Yeah. All right.
Just as another question, perhaps, Mr. President, if you can allow me. We had an engagement with President Ramaphosa yesterday, and he indicated that the two of you had a meeting to discuss certain issues, perhaps, I don't know, maybe including the DRC matter we've just spoken about, and relations between South Africa and Rwanda, because coming here, they were described as frosty tense, not as at the level they were in the early 90s or thereabout. Can the President maybe shed some light on what was discussed between himself and President Ramaphosa?
Yes, no, President Ramaphosa would be correct. I didn't know that he said what's what he had said to you people. But he's correct. I mean, he was not there when I'm talking about, when the time we were negotiating with the Congolese. And even at the time that the new democratic South Africa started working with Rwanda. So I briefed him about both things. And the president who said, this is what happened with regard to the Eastern Congo, and this is what happened with regard to the bilateral relations. And what South Africa did in order to help to get Rwanda to recover some of the things that President Kagame mentioned yesterday. So I did brief him about that, and including the issue about how to resolve the challenges of the conflict in Eastern Congo and the tensions between Rwanda and the DRC relating to the Eastern Congo, which arises not only from the presence there of the people who committed genocide here, but also of the Banyamulenge, the Tutsi-speaking population of the Congo, because that was another point of tension. So I did.
Rwanda, it comes at a time where the world is in turmoil. What can we learn from what happened here in Rwanda 1994 so that it doesn't happen?
Well, Sophie, I mean, I think all of us as Africans were very, very much touched by this terrible thing that happened in Rwanda 30 years ago, the genocide. Clearly, we would never, ever want that to happen again anywhere on our continent. And I think part of the reason is very important for all of us is because all our countries are diverse countries, made up of different sections of the population. And you never, ever want that there must be tensions that would arise among these population groups such that in the end, people end up murdering one another in the way that happened here. So this concept of unity in diversity is very, very important to all of us. And so we For instance, when President Kagame sent me an invitation to come, and he immediately decided, no, we would come to express solidarity with them, but also to remind ourselves as Africans that we need indeed to act to make sure that this terrible thing that happened here, the genocide, is not repeated anywhere else on the continent. And I think the message also from President Kagame when he spoke yesterday afternoon was that he was saying it can't happen again here. And I think he was speaking for the rest of us on the continent, that this thing must not happen again anywhere else on the continent.
So, Mr. President, President Kagame in his address yesterday expressed concern about some of the things that are being witnessed in the Great Lakes region, especially in the east of Congo. What's the President's view on this, insofar as this idea that the political solution is the only thing that can solve the situation there? To what extent do you think a political solution is feasible as far as the situation in the east of the DRC is concerned?
Sure, I think you will remember that many years ago, as a government of South Africa, we worked with the people of the Congo to prepare for a return to democracy. Remember those negotiations that took place at Sun City. So in that sense, we were dealing with many challenges of the Congo, including the situation in the Eastern Congo. One of the consequences of that is that 2002, 2003, we convened a meeting of President Kabila, Joseph Kabila, and President Kagame, together with the then Secretary General of the UN, Kofi Annan. So there was a negotiation as to how these two countries should work together to deal with the matter in the Eastern Congo. And they signed an agreement. That there is an existing agreement.